time to break down the co-main event. It features New York's own Chris Weidman, who hasn't really had great luck in that state, but he is coming off a win in Long Island over Kelvin Gastelum, and I know he's got to be a little bit bitter that Kelvin Gastelum's got the title shot and not him, but he's been out to injury, so it's him versus Ronaldo Jacare Souza, another guy who's probably not sending Gastelum a Christmas card because he took a loss to Gastelum earlier this year. So it's funny how Gastelum's tied in to all this. But you got these two together, and, hey, I know both guys are going to be thinking, if I win, I could be getting a title shot. So high stakes in the co-main event. The odds are Chris Weidman at -170, Jacare +150. You just don't say that too often when you talk about a great fighter like Jacare, but that's how great the matchup is. All right, Dan Tom, lead us off here. Who do you like in this co-main event?
I'm with a lot of hardcores where I was chomping at the bit for this matchup to maybe be made in like 2014, 2015. But I'll tell you what, it's still a close competitive fight, and I would argue that it's even harder to call now. Neither fighter has really jumped off a cliff per se, but they've had kind of mixed results, mixed records. You kind of alluded to even Weidman in New York. The difference is, though, I would say if we're splitting hairs here, I kind of agree with the odds makers by slightly favoring Chris Weidman. I still feel he's a better mover in exchanges. He has the better footwork. Obviously, Jacare is not just grappling, but his athleticism, which was a real key for his grappling in his jiu-jitsu days to his MMA career now. He is going to have that, but at 38 compared to Weidman's 34, that does worry me a little bit. You know, we saw him slowing down. Now, you could argue that he won the Gastelum fight in his last fight. There is an argument there to be made, but I think that body language is what swayed the judges away, and that's actually what's swaying me away from Jacare. He's certainly a live dog. He could certainly do it, especially if he tags Weidman. He could follow up with strikes, maybe even get a submission, be the first person to submit Chris Weidman as far as MMA goes. But I'm going with Chris Weidman here. I think it's going to be a real gritty decision. I do think that his wrestling, defensively and offensively, is a notch above Jacare's, and that's going to allow him to dictate this fight.
Ahora tú! Jacare!
Sorry about that. That was a mosquito in here. I'm going with Chris Weidman. I'm going to note something that I talk about a lot, and it's consistency. If you were to take the best Jacare and put him up against the best Chris Weidman, give me Jacare all day. But we just haven't really seen that consistently out of Jacare. So for me, if you look at Chris Weidman's camp, Aljamain Sterling, Gian Vellante, they're all kind of on a high right now. And Chris Weidman's on one himself. So I'm going to go with Chris Weidman in this fight.
And, you know, Jacare, man, he's a great fighter. He's been a world champion at Strikeforce. But lately, if you look at his record, he has come up short on some of his bigger fights. Dan, one thing that stands out is just him. I don't know what happened. Like he hit the gas tank, you know, reaching empty early in the first round or the beginning of the second round of the Gastelum fight. I wasn't used to that. You know, especially knowing that, hey, if you win this fight, you could be fighting for a title. I need to see some gas tank over 25 rounds, and if you ain't got it, you know, I start to think, is it age that caught up to you? Do you have some sort of an injury? I mean, I know he moved from Brazil to the United States. I just thought that we would have seen a fresher Jacare, and we didn't. Weidman hasn't fought in about a year now, but I have to make a pick here, and I'm going to go with Weidman. I think Jacare can threaten on the ground, but Weidman is very underestimated on the ground. I think he's really a really good grappler. He's got the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, so I think he can stay away from any trouble that Jacare might pose. You know, that night Jacare punches harder, but again, how much is it at the cost of his energy meter? I like Weidman in this fight, and I think you're right. I think it's going to go all 15 minutes, so Weidman by decision here. And I guess we all got Chris Weidman. It's unanimous. There you go. Thanks for listening to the co-main event breakdown at Saturday's UFC 230 card. And keep it locked on MMA Junkie throughout the week because we got our guys out there, young Mike Bond and Ken Hathaway. They're doing editorial and they're doing the video work for you, so we got you covered.